Okie dokie. Then I think everybody is here now, and important that it is, yes, the recording is on, so everything is okay. Yes, lovely people, since this is the last weekend for you, I thought, what do I do on the last day? And on one hand, I'm thinking maybe I should do it right at the end, but on the other hand, I also thought it's also nice maybe to start your last weekend with it. We'll do a little bit of a meditation where we also like really connect with the group. And I find that even though this is online, that you really sort of feel that group connection. And I thought, let's just give it a try and see how it feels for you, because I really enjoy teaching online also, of course, also in person, but also online. And I feel that there's a lot that you can actually do online, also energy-wise. And this might also give you, again, some inspiration to think about not just doing like live classes, but that you can also maybe at some point start your career in some online work as well. So let's take a moment to do a little meditation and a little centering, and then we'll do something energizing, and then we will start with the lecture. So you're welcome to just stay in your chair if you prefer. You can also sit on the ground wherever you are, because I see some of you are in a really comfortable sort of couch or sofa for meditation work. I always suggest that you are able to really feel your sitting bones rooting down, and that you can sort of lengthen along the spine. Wherever you are seated on. I think that's always a nice thing, instead of sort of hanging and slouching backwards. So finding your seat, and if you are literally in a chair, then make sure that both your feet are nicely grounded on the floor, so that you feel the soles of the feet. The connection of the soles of the feet with the ground. And of course, if you're in a more meditation type of seat like Sukhasana or Lotus Pose, Padmasana, then you're more feeling probably the sides of your legs and your sitting bones. So taking a moment to really become present in your seat, feeling whatever it is that you're sitting on, and knowing that whatever it is you're sitting on is making connection with the ground as well. So that thing that you're sitting on is also connecting you to the earth in a way. So see if you can really start to feel all the areas of the body that make that connection with the earth, with the ground. Closing your eyes if you haven't done so yet. And really bringing your awareness inside your body. With the eyes closed, you can really shut off the senses that sort of pick up all the signals from the external world. And we really start to open the senses inside of us. So you want to shift the focus from thinking to feeling. Feeling into the body, really taking a moment to become completely present this moment in the place that you are seated. And taking a moment to, again, really either ground down your feet to the floor, or feeling that connection with maybe the sides of the legs and the connection with the ground. Feeling your sitting bones either on the chair or on the floor or on your mat. Really noticing how you can drop your weight into that foundation underneath you. Feeling how the earth gives you a sense of safeness, stability, a foundation, support. Noticing for a moment that when you feel that stability and safety, that you can actually relax more. And from that connection with the ground, start to create length along the spine and bringing the crown of the head closer up towards the sky. As you find length along the spine, also open into the heart and the lung space, creating more space for the breath to flow freely. Then you're starting to feel how the breath is just breathing you. Feeling how the flow of air that comes in and out of the body creates these movements in your body. Noticing for yourself, where do you feel the breath the most? Which parts of the body do you feel the breath the most? Just for a few more breath cycles, just following that natural flow of air as it comes in and out of the body. Maybe you feel like you want to deepen your breathing a little bit. You can elongate the length of the inhales and the exhales. Really noticing if you can breathe more in towards all directions of the rib cage. So breathing not only towards the front, but also to the side ribs and towards the shoulder blades, the belly. And if you just sit here following your breath, I hope that you really feel the power of the breath, how the breath can really change the state of the body, the mind. Then, since this is the last weekend you have spent lots of time together, the group, let's take a moment here to visualize us all sitting in a circle. And you know all the faces of your fellow students, the face of Sarah, probably mine also by now. Just picturing us all sitting in a circle, maybe somewhere in nature. And as we are sitting here in this circle, just take a moment to sort of move your mind's eye across all the faces that you see in the circle, just picturing each and every person. And then starting to send out your loving energy from your heart. Just let that loving energy radiate out to the whole group. Sending your best wishes, your love to each and everyone within the circle. As you're sending out your loving energy, sending also a big smile to each and every person in the circle. Really feeling that connection. And then start to feel, instead of radiating out, instead of sending out, start to feel the energy of the group. Feeling the love that's been radiating from each and every person, also towards yourself. Feeling everyone's loving energy. It almost wraps around you like a blanket of love, a blanket of good energy. And then in this beautiful circle that we created with our loving energy, and being also a circle of trust. We've been already working with each other for lots of weeks now. And which better place to bring an intention to than into a big circle of trust and support. So I also like to ask you, you probably had to set an intention for yourself, for your training. What do you want to take out of it? What do you want to take with you after the training? Maybe there is something now that's coming towards the end of the training that you would really like to sort of set an intention for yourself, something to keep in mind, to keep on working with after the training and in the weeks to come. So you're welcome to, in your mind's eye, create this intention. We also call this a sankalpa. And then after repeating it in your mind's eye, you can literally place that intention in the middle of that circle, our circle. Taking one more deep breath in and out. Maybe sending everyone one more time a big smile, all the faces in the group, sending everyone your good energy, big smile. And then bringing the hands in front of your heart, Anjali Mudra. And on your next exhale, bowing your head towards your heart. And then slowly blinking your eyes open and lifting up your head. Namaste. I hope that you felt that. I felt quite a bit of energy coming from you, and yeah, I always find it actually pretty special that even though you're online, that you can still create that sort of group feeling, and energy is something that's everywhere. So you can, yeah, even with online trainings, you can use this. When I do online trainings, I don't meet the persons in person, basically, while you, of course, also connected together already. But yeah, this is online work can also be strong. Okay, just a little bit of wake up now. We'll do a few tapping movements, which are nice. We're tapping on the stomach meridian, which is a meridian that also grounds us, and it's the yang meridian, so it will also give us a bit of energy. And you can just start by tapping under your eye, just sort of as you look forward, straight forward. You're just tapping under the pupil. These are the meridian points, stomach 1 and 2. There are also used these points in tapping with EFT tapping. And you have a lot of different points that you can tap, but just for a few times, just tap. And then bring your hands down to your collarbones, and just sort of on the outside of your sternum, you just tap just under the collarbones. This is stomach points 12, 11, and 12. Also here, you can really start to energize the body. Under the eyes is very nice for grounding, and these are also called the coffee cup points. We'll just do a few, and then we stop, because otherwise it's maybe too much. Yes, and then you can let go. Take a nice deep breath in and a breath out. Okay, then let's start. Last time we ended with talking already a little bit about the circulatory system. And I know it's really early morning for you, and the video that I'm going to ask you to watch for a moment is, again, this crazy guy who talks super fast and is very energetic. So I hope that it's not like too much stimuli in the early morning, but I do really love him, because he can really, in short, show you, and also with showing you like cartoonish, like drawings, animations, it makes it so clear how systems in the body work. So let me just see for a moment. I'm going to share my screen with you. And I want to make sure that's, yeah. Okay. So just a little recap. Circulatory system. The circulatory system is the system that contains our blood, that circulates the blood through the body. And of course, the blood is the carrier of all our nutrients, waste products, but also very important red blood cells that carry the oxygen and the carbon dioxide. So it's a very important system in the body, of course. It contains, or it consists of, the heart, the arteries, the veins, and then the smallest blood vessels that are the capillaries. And there you already have this guy. So I'm going to first show you the video, and then I'll continue with the lecture. So again, I'll just stop sharing for a moment, and I'll share the link in, let me just see. I'll share the link in the chat. I think that would be the easiest. And then it's about 10 minutes video. So I'll just let you watch the video, and then we'll come back here. Let me just see, where is the chat gone? It's weird, I don't see the chat. Yes, here it is. So here you have it. And I assume that last time also it worked fine. So I have the feeling that now everybody can also watch it. Do let me know, of course, if there is a problem. I will, at least for now, mute myself so that you don't hear sounds coming from my place. Yeah, take a moment to watch it, and then we'll be back in about 10 minutes. So I have the feeling that probably everyone is almost finished watching, or is it the last part? Maybe you want to just give me a signal at some point if you are done with the video. Yes, I see some thumbs up here and there. Okay, great. Just wait a few more moments. I see a few still. Yeah, Canada is back. Let's see. John and Lindsay. Benjamin also, I think he said he was done. Give it a few more moments. I always like his videos because he explains it. He talks really fast, but it's quite well explained, and it's like he picks out the important things, and yeah, and I always like to sort of visualize something, see it in front of me via an animation, for example. That really helps. Okay, Cassie, Ben, John, Sam, are you done? Not sure if they... Yes, cool. So yes, I see everybody is okay. Any questions on this, or maybe it makes more sense if I just start my, because I'll continue a little bit on this topic, and then if there are questions, then you can ask me then, because I will explain in a little bit more detail some things. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen again with you. Let me see. Give me 1 second to find out where my presentation went. Yes, here it is. There we are. Okay. Okay, so the circulatory system. It's the system where our blood is transported through. It carries oxygen, nutrients to all the tissues in the body. Every cell in the body needs it. And then, of course, carbon dioxide and other waste products are removed. Arteries transport blood enriched with oxygen into the body, towards all the cells. In the veins, they transport the deoxygenated blood back to the heart. And then you saw this in the video as well, the artery that leaves the heart is very large. And then, of course, it branches off to smaller arteries, smaller, until we come to the smallest blood vessels, which are the capillaries. And then the capillaries will start to become bigger again. And then we call them veins, because they are then carrying and the waste products and the deoxygenated blood towards back to the heart again. So arteries, they have a great deal of smooth muscle tissue, much more than the veins have. The veins almost have none of it. And therefore arteries have really thick walls. And you saw that also in the video, the heart, specifically the lower part, where you have the chambers that basically push the blood into or the valves that push the blood into the body. And it's really like thick walls, really the tissue filled with muscle. And at the beginning of the artery, you have a lot of that muscle, smooth muscle tissue in there as well. And then it becomes less and less, and then the walls of the arteries also become thinner, of course, until they become as small as capillaries. So of course they have this smooth muscle tissue because they need to really pump the blood through the body. And of course the heart is the first pump, big pump, and then at the beginning of the say where the arteries still are, there is also still some of that pumping happening. Therefore we have those, the muscle tissue in there. And then in the veins, it works a bit different. We have valves actually, and those valves, they help to carry the blood back up to the heart. And you saw already how valves work in the video a little bit. It's basically a sort of a door that only goes one way. So something can leave one space with a valve, but then it can't go back into the space. But I'll have a picture for you a little bit later where you can see it. And then you have the superior and the inferior vena cava, where actually all the veins return to with the deoxygenated blood. And from those two veins, the vena cava, so the superior and inferior, basically that lead all that blood back into the heart. And then it can go back into the lungs to again be filled with oxygen. And in the capillaries, the smallest blood vessels, their walls are so thin and they have pores as well. And that's where it's almost like the molecules, the O2, the oxygen and the CO2, but also the nutrients, the building blocks that the cells need to either regenerate or to nourish themselves. It literally sort of dissolves through those pores from one cell or tissue into the other, basically. Here you can see the vena cava. This is the superior part. I remember everything superior meaning more up towards the head, basically. Inferior, lower, away, further away from the head. And yeah, these you can see they're quite big because you see the artery is super big as well coming out of the heart. But that vena cava is also quite a big vein. And there's a lot of blood vessels that all come together to bring that deoxygenated blood back to the heart. Now, this is how the valves work. So if you look at my mouse indicator, if you think about a leg, for example, and blood is coming up from the feet up to the leg, wanting to go back up to the heart, then there's only like a one-way route. So it can only go up, because the moment, because of gravity and it wants to come down again, yes, it might come down a little bit, but it will never come back through the valves, unless there is a problem with the valves, of course, but we'll talk about that later. This is the whole blood circulation, the whole loop. So we have the loop from the heart going into the lungs, and then of course from the heart also going into the body. You have this picture also on your manual on page 47. And I'm not sure, I think we spoke about it last week. We said, how long does it take for to complete the whole loop for one drop of blood, basically? How long does it take to travel through both loops? And I think I said a minute at a time, but actually it's 30 seconds. So it's a lot quicker even. So within 30 seconds, yeah, one drop of blood will literally can travel through the whole body, which is quite crazy when you think about it. And a few other things, interesting things, is that, so the body has a lot of blood vessels all together. If you would put them all together, one after the other, basically, it comes down to 96,000, which is 60,000 miles. So 96,000 kilometers, 60,000 miles of blood vessels. And that means that you, with all the blood vessels, you can nearly go 2.5 times around the Earth. Pretty amazing if you think that that's all inside of us. And then the body has about 5.6 liters, which is 1.5 gallons of blood. It's quite a lot of blood in our bodies. And so the circulation time for blood is approximately 30 seconds for the full loop, yeah, lung and body. And then also quite interesting to think about, in one day, the blood travels a total of 19,000 kilometers, being 1,200 miles of 12,000 miles. So also that is 4 times the distance across the US from coast to coast. So 4 times back and forth. That's so quite crazy. So that's the body is actually very active and very busy all the time, making sure that we that we stay alive. So if I don't see anything coming up in the chat, I'll just continue with the presentation, and then at the end I'll check if there's any questions on this. So our blood consists of plasma, of white blood cells, of platelets, and red blood cells. And you can see that here. Plasma is the biggest part. Plasma is basically a liquid water, but it is a little bit colored. It's a bit yellowy because it contains a lot of nutrients, protein. Yeah, there's those kind of things floating in there, and it's not completely transparent. But the most of the blood is basically that fluid. Then we have the white blood cells, and they contain, or they are the bodies that look for any foreign bodies, any bacteria, viruses, anything that shouldn't be there. The white blood cells, those cells look for that and try to eliminate it, basically. So that's our protection system of the body, so to say. And then the platelets, they help with blood clotting. So when we cut ourselves, for example, you can see it happen. Sometimes you're bleeding a little bit and then slowly it stops. And that's the reason that it stops is because platelets, they gather where you cut yourself, and they will make the blood basically stop to bleed. Hey? So it will make the blood a clot and not flow anymore. So it closes off that cut or the wound. And then we have the red blood cells, and that's also quite a bit, 45%. And they transport the oxygen and the carbon dioxide, the CO2. Yeah, so that's what our blood consists of. So now a question for you. What pumps the blood through the arteries? Well, we just sort of spoke about this, so that should be an easy question. But please let me know through the chat. So what pumps the blood through the arteries? Don't see anything coming in yet, but I think that that's to do with it just takes a bit of time. Yeah, there we go. Some people are saying the heart. Is it just the heart, or is there more? Yes, John is already answering that. Great. Yes. So definitely it is the heart that pumps the blood through the arteries. The arteries also have this smooth muscle tissue, so it's that contraction that pumps the blood through the body. Now my question is, what pushes the blood through the veins? Can you think of that? Do you have an idea? How does the blood go back from the feet to the heart? John is saying pressure gradient. Yeah, but what creates that? So when you think about it, it's a long way from the feet back to, Carrie is saying valves, but the valves don't push anything. What do we do? What do we have a lot of in the body? And why is our blood circulation better when we move than when we don't move? Yay, Carrie, thank you. the surrounding muscles. Yes, so it's the surrounding muscles, just our skeletal muscles, that when we move, they contract and they become thicker, as you know, because the muscle becomes shorter, so it becomes a bit thicker, and they will press against the veins. And when they press against the veins, they basically are pressing the blood back up towards the heart. And I'll show you that here in the picture. So when the muscles are relaxed, you can see the valves close. But when the muscles are contracting, they basically press the blood upward, because there's no way back, because the valves make sure that the blood can't go back down. So when the muscles are contracting, it presses against the veins, and the valves open and the blood gets pushed up, as you can see here in this picture. And remember that we talked about the muscles in the legs, and in the lower leg, we have the soleus muscle, and they call that the heart of the leg. Because it's a long way from the feet and from the lower legs to go for the blood to come up towards the heart. And it's specifically that soleus that really presses against the big vein in the leg, the lower leg, and it will press the blood up. So then let's talk a little bit about blood pressure. So blood pressure is the measurement of force that is applied to the artery walls. And I already said it in the video, you have two numbers. It's the systolic and the diastolic blood pressure. But let's just say that we just talk about blood pressure in general as one sort of, because it means, of course, when the pressure is higher than it normally should be, then you can say your blood pressure is high. Or when then both numbers are lower than they should be, then of course your blood pressure is low. Now, what can have an effect on our blood pressure are different things. It can be something that's the matter with the heart. Is it not pumping it well enough around? Is there a leakage somewhere? It can be actually the walls of the blood vessels. Did they widen, or did they actually become more narrow? And that will, of course, make a difference in your blood pressure. But also mental things like stress, of course, can really have an impact on your blood pressure. So here you can see, if you have in the first one, a normal blood pressure would be a normal blood vessel with the normal amount of blood in there, then the blood pressure is normal. If there is too much blood inside a normal blood vessel, that means that there's more pressure against the wall of the blood vessel, so the blood pressure also increases, becomes higher. Or when there is the same amount of blood as usual, but actually the blood vessel is more narrow due to, for example, like cholesterol or fats, or when the wall of an artery is actually clotted, basically, with things that shouldn't be there, like, for example, fats and cholesterol, and they will make the blood vessel narrower. So then, of course, a narrower tube for the same amount of fluid to go through will increase the blood pressure. And of course, if you would all of a sudden, because you're bleeding, for example, and you have less amount of blood in your body with the same and normal wideness of your blood vessels, then the blood pressure would be low. Now, a few things that are important to know with yoga, and that's why I always like to take a moment to talk about this specifically. Sometimes I always ask up front in class, maybe you do that as well, or maybe it's when people sign up for your class and come to the studio and they have to fill in a form or whatever. But in general, you would expect, if somebody has high blood pressure, that they would tell you, that you know, that you are aware, so that you can also give suggestions on what should they do if there are certain asanas that they have to be careful with. So in general, and it really depends also on the severity of the high blood pressure, but there are like a few things where we can say, okay, in general, we watch out for this. There are a few red flags. So if you have high blood pressure, you really want to be sure with inversions. Yeah, with inversions, of course, meaning that the head is below the heart, and it just will start to increase the blood pressure even more. Meaning that a shoulder stand or a headstand, you don't do this. The legs are up above the trunk, and the heart is the head is below the heart, sorry. So it means that then you're just going to increase the blood flow and also therefore the blood pressure. Yeah, so you want to be very careful there. But even like more gentle and relaxing asanas and inversions, in yin also you have some sort of mild inversions. Even there you want to be careful. So for example, when you say legs up the wall pose, Viparita Karani, you want to be careful there if somebody has high blood pressure, again, because it will stimulate the blood flow, the circulation from the feet down back to the heart, and you want to be careful there. In yin, you have some postures like dangling, which is the same as like ragdoll pose, you can call it, or just a standing forward fold. Poses like halasana plow or snail pose, which we do in yin. You don't want to do these postures. Again, depending on each situation, but in general, I would say if somebody comes to you and they say, I have high blood pressure, avoid any of these kind of inversions. So what is actually good is calming restorative yoga asanas. They are in any way or in general anyway very useful to reduce stress, anxiety, and also lowering blood pressure naturally, because they are all tapping into a part of our nervous system. And let me just see if you still remember, maybe you can write it in the chat. So when we're doing restorative yoga or yin yoga or just calming yoga, what nervous system do we tap into? Do you remember? Just waiting a little bit longer to see if anything comes up in the chat. Canadae says the sympathetic. No, it's the other one. Tasha says the relaxed nervous system. I forgot the name. Yeah, so it's all about yes, Canadae, the parasympathetic nervous system, exactly, because it's the nervous system basically that the part of our nervous system that brings us in this state of relaxation. It's the rest and digest mode. The sympathetic nervous system, of course, is the nervous system that actually brings us into the fight or flight mode. So actually it will increase the heart rate. So what is good for high blood pressure? So intensive stretching, poses like where we do leg stretches and gentle hip openers are very effective yoga poses to do for high blood pressure. Reason being that the blood needs to flow back from the legs back up to the heart, and when we do these leg stretches and gentle hip opening, we sort of create more opening and blood can flow a bit more easy. The best yoga poses for high blood pressure are just poses where we keep sort of our spine in a horizontal position. That's also because then it takes less effort for the heart to pump blood to the brain. When we're standing or we're sitting, of course, the blood needs to pump it up, while when we're in a horizontal position, it's easier. So the heart will slow down and then the heart rate will also go down. Seated positions, also like Baddha Konasana, butterfly, Virasana, hero pose, but also a wide-legged seated forward fold, Upavista Konasana, they can be very useful yoga poses for high blood pressure. And then at some point, slowly you can start to introduce, again, mild inversions, and then maybe that legs up the wall pose, Viparita Karani could be smart, and maybe a supported bridge pose, Setubandha Sarvangasana, but then done on a bolster or block. those kind of postures, they will slowly start to, you start to get used again to sort of being in a mild inversion, and then you can build it up from there. So how can you slow your heart rate down? That is by deep breathing. Again, also the breath has this really calming effect. Hopefully you notice that when we've done a few things together in breath work, and especially of course the calming breath work, and it really brings the mind also into quietness, but also the body can really bring it into a big relaxation. And also because we have from the skull, the 10th nerve in the skull, the vagus nerve running down through the diaphragm. The diaphragm, of course, that big dome-shaped muscle that goes up and down when we breathe. And that vagus nerve is a very important nerve for the parasympathetic nervous system. So when we start to breathe deeply, it basically starts to stimulate that parasympathetic nervous system. Yeah, so to slow down the heart rate, deep breathing, of course, relaxing, yin yoga, or any really slow yoga, any relaxing yoga, restorative yoga, and poses where we keep a horizontal spine will really help people that have high blood pressure or are feeling anxious or stressed, or just not when they're not well, basically, and like too overstimulated. Just another thing short about something that can happen when the valves are not working properly anymore in our veins. You can see it here. This is a normal vein. Valves are still functioning in a good way. But when those valves don't work in a good way anymore, or the walls of the veins have become a bit thin and are sort of stretching out, bulging out, that is because when valves are not closing enough anymore, basically blood keeps coming back down. And then that's why we see varicose veins mainly also in legs, because the blood comes down again, of course, and there is a lot of the gravity pull is there as well. And say that there is a valve somewhere that is sort of still working a bit, but then the valves above that not so good. You can imagine that blood keeps flowing back, and then at some point it sort of starts to create so much blood there that also it starts to stretch out the walls of the veins. And when there are problems with the valves and when the walls of the veins are stretching out, that's when you get these varicose veins. So varicose veins, they are swollen, twisted veins, and you can just literally see them under the skin. And then generally they are in the legs, but you can also have them in other parts of the body. And why I mention this is because you have to be, if somebody has this quite severely, there are also a few things with yoga that you want to be mindful of. So this is showing you those varicose veins, then you probably understand it. You can see this is really like severe. And this is a little bit less, but still it's there, you can see it. And just for yoga, I would be mindful that if somebody has it, or they mention it to you, or if you see it on someone, be careful, especially when you're doing adjustments on someone. Don't press on their legs. Don't push too hard forward in a forward fold when people have varicose veins. And also people that have it and they are in a child's pose, for them it might not feel so nice because there is quite a bit of pressure on the legs, and of course there's a deep flexion in the knee and there's pressure on their legs, so it might not be so great for them. And then of course any position where you have these crossed legs, like in Garudasana, in of course Yang Yoga, and shoelace we call it in Yin Yoga, they are better to avoid as well. Something to think about or to remember. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. And then I would love to hear from you if you have any questions, either on high blood pressure, on the circulatory system, or is everything clear? I have the feeling that everybody is okay. Okay, good. Then John is asking, can varicose veins be fixed? Well, it's not that they can really like fix the vein that has the problems. What they will do is they will take either the vein out. And so if it's really severe for someone, they will take the whole vein out. And then they will make sure, of course, that that sort of tract, that blood vessel is connected to another blood vessel so that the blood can still flow. So they will always have to do that with blood vessels that can be taken out. They can also inject sometimes. They inject something in there, and I don't know what it does exactly, but I think it sort of closes it down also. So it just means that there's no more blood can run through there, so that then at least you don't see it so much anymore on the skin. So it's more a beauty thing, so to say, then. But I mean, some people really, when you saw that in the picture also, you can have varicose veins quite badly, and then it can also really cause discomfort, and especially then they will do something about it. But they can't really heal the same blood vessel. They will either take it out or inject into it. Yes, I hope that answered your question. Okay, lovely people, then I'm going to give you a little break. I hope that it's now in your time 8:04, so I'm thinking about 6 minutes. So if we come back around 8:10, then we still have enough time to talk about the other things that I wanted to talk about with you. Yeah, so I see you in a little bit of time. Okay. And we are back. Or at least I hope everyone's back. Yes. Great. Okay. Then I am going to share my screen with you again, and we're gonna talk a little bit about a few other systems that we have in the body. I'll talk shortly about the lymphatic system, then a little bit more about a little bit more detail about the digestive system, and then only short about the endocrine system if we if we have enough time. So I'm gonna share my screen with you. There we go. So our lymphatic system, just like our circulatory system and also the nervous system, if you would see a picture of the whole system, you see that we have all these channels and vessels running throughout the whole body. The lymphatic system have their own vessels, basically called lymphatic vessels, and you can say that this is the system that helps to prevent the body from getting ill, helping against infection. It protects the body. Yeah, so it consists of lymphatic vessels, and it also has these lymph nodes, and the lymph nodes is basically like the washing machines of the lymphatic vessels. That's where where the fluids, basically, with all the things that we don't want in the body, basically get washed clean. So the system drains fluids from the tissues in the body and helps to defend the body against infection or any foreign bodies that shouldn't be there. This system also helps to regulate fluids in the body, and it plays also quite a part in keeping the environment of the cells in balance. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but balance in the body is so important, specifically also for our cells. So the cleaning and defense work take place in the lymph nodes, and the lymph nodes are like small bean-shaped organs in various sizes, and you maybe have felt them in your body before. Let's just take a look for a moment at the lymphatic system. Here you can see it, and there you can also see the concentration of these bean-shaped lymph nodes. You can see there's a bigger concentration sort of running in the hip, over the hip, in the groin. Of course, also just at more in the stomach. You have them here in your armpits, in the neck, and that's why I say you probably maybe have felt them before. If you've ever felt like before having a flu or being ill, and you would then maybe feel here in your area of your neck, you would feel these like little bean-shaped or round glands, basically, but they are basically not glands, but they are your lymph nodes. They are the lymph nodes that are swollen because they are actually active and working for you. That's why they become bigger. So when you go to a doctor and the doctor wants to find out if you maybe have an infection in your body, in general, the doctor will start to sort of feel you here, or maybe in your like in your groin, in the crease of the hip. They will also feel there and see specifically if there might be something, for example, like an infection in your leg. As you can see, the spleen, mostly it's seen as part of the blood circulatory system, but it's mainly actually, or officially, it is part of the lymphatic system. It's the organ that also cleans the blood. So here you can see the lymph node, and you can see all these vessels. We have multiple vessels, the lymph vessels where the fluid basically comes in to this bean-shaped lymph node, and there's one vessel that basically takes the cleaned up fluid back into the body. And then we have two veins. They're called the subclavian veins. They're just sort of positioned also here, where actually all the fluids of the lymphs basically come back into the blood circulatory, into our blood basically, so into the circulatory system. Yeah, so in the lymphatic vessels, you find this lymph fluid. It's almost clear liquid, and it consists also of 95% of water. And that contains those white blood cells that circulate around the body, basically, and looking for infection, bacteria, viruses, foreign bodies, things that shouldn't be in the body. And this fluid is collected from tissues in all parts of the body, so from all your cells, basically, or around the cells. And it draws fluid from those tissues, but also then from the interstitial fluid, which is the fluid that lives outside the cells. And also from plasma in the blood. It will take it all away, basically, to get washed in the lymph nodes, in the washing machines of the body. And then when the fluid is clean again, so it's coming from the lymph node, it is returned via the subclavian veins, which are here behind the clavicle at the plexus brachialis, and then it will go back into the blood system, or the circulatory system. Yeah, so this being the subclavian vein, you also have the subclavian artery, but the subclavian vein basically is where the lymph fluid, when it's cleaned, comes back in, and then it will get back into the blood system. Remember the plexus brachialis there? We said it, there are important arteries and veins there. There are nerves there, and you just want to make sure that you don't get that compression. So that's why, of course, when we start to round forward, this area becomes tighter, and it gets compressed. And what we want to keep is a nice open chest, so that there's also space for this area, basically, for that plexus brachialis. So for the lymphatic system, it already mentioned it, our body has a lot of water, and the lymph fluid itself is 95% water. It's so important that we drink a lot, that we hydrate, so that also we keep this system sort of clean. So it's important that we drink a lot, and not only for urinary system, circulatory system, or lymphatic system, but also for all the other systems in the body. Basically, we need water. And even also before we go to sleep, I know some people really don't like it because they know that they have to get up at night and go to the toilet. But of course, you can imagine 8 hours sort of, or somewhere between 6 and 8 hours without any drink, that dehydrates also the body. So it is actually quite good to drink something before you go to sleep. And also the moment you wake up on an empty stomach is actually also really good. Okay. And that was just in short the lymphatic system. And then I want to continue with the digestive system. And I'll just continue because I assume otherwise I would have probably seen any questions coming up in the chat, and I don't. So if there's anyone that has a question on the lymphatic system, you can also unmute yourself for a moment, but otherwise I'll just continue. Okay, I'll just continue. So our digestive system, of course, also very important system. Everything that we eat basically is something that we give to our cells, or most of it. But of course, we can't, our cells can't use the things, how we eat it, the way that we eat it, as in like a full apple or a chip or whatever it is that we're eating. We can't, that is not a building block that the body can use. The body needs to break it down to sort of the most raw building blocks, basically the tiniest of building blocks, to make it something that the cells can use to either regenerate, to feed them, to create energy. So it is a very important system in the body. The system consists of the mouth, because that's basically where our digestion already starts. The salivary glands, which are also partly inside the mouth. The esophagus, where the food comes from the mouth down the throat, and then into the esophagus, and then into the stomach. And we have the liver and gallbladder that also help with digesting some specific things that we eat. Pancreas plays an important role also with bringing enzymes into the digestive system to help with digestion of specific foods that we eat, and also is very much involved in our blood sugar levels in the body. Then the small intestine and the large intestine. And the large intestine is the ascending, transverse, and descending colon. And they play the sort of the last part in taking out all the nutrients that were before like broken down. And then when it comes into the small intestines and the large intestines, there is where we take it all into the body. And then the waste products via the segment rectoid, rectum, and anus are then excreted to the outside, basically outside of the body. Here you can see it, the mouth. When we start to chew our food, we have this, and we call it in Dutch speeksel, and I don't know actually, I think in English it's probably just salivary. It's the sort of the slimy thing that starts, as you start to chew, you start to feel it, and that moist into the mouth, and it's the salivary glands that actually excrete that. And there are already enzymes in there that start the process of digestion, of breaking down whatever it is that we're eating into the smallest of the building blocks. Then this is the esophagus that you see here, running from the back of the throat all the way down towards the stomach. And then the stomach, from there it goes to the small intestine, and there's many meters of small intestine. And then from the small intestine, it continues with the large intestine, the colon, and then from the colon, then most of the nutrients are taken into the body, and also the fluids are taken out of the foods that we need to keep inside the body. And then the waste product, our feces, that's what's left, and it leaves the body via the rectum and the anus. So that is basically like one big hollow pipe, so to say. But then, of course, there are the other organs that play a part, is then the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas, and they play a part because they excrete enzymes, and they help with digestion of specific foods. To just go through that, or I'll just first talk about this a bit more. So the digestive system is a group of organs that help converting food basically into energy and the basic nutrients, those building blocks that are needed for the whole body, for our cells. Food travels from the mouth into the digestive system, broken down by these digestive enzymes that we have, and constantly broken down into smaller nutrients until basically they become the raw materials that actually the cells can use to regenerate, to build, to feed themselves, to create energy. So it's basically this long tube where the food passes through, which we call the alimentary channel. And this is what you already said. And then also remember, very important that we have that big tube, that alimentary channel or canal, And there are some other organs that are not part of that channel, basically, but they do really help with digestion. So that is the salivary glands, the liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. So in the mouth, it's where the journey starts. The digestion really starts there. And we have these accessory organs that help with digestion of food: the tongue, the teeth, and the salivary glands. And now you can imagine that when you eat really fast and you swallow your food in quite big chunks, that it actually, it makes the digestion less good. If you can imagine that. When you chew a lot, first of all, you're making with the tongue and the teeth, you're grinding more your food, you're making it already more, you already break it more apart, so to say. And the salivary glands that release that sort of slime or fluid, where these enzymes are also in, that can also already start to combine more, so that it basically aids your digestion. So that's why also eating slow, it's not only about mindful eating to taste more and everything, but it's actually for your physical body is also a lot better. Then the pharynx and the oesophagus, that's that chewed food from the mouth, passes by the pharynx and then into the oesophagus and then all the way down to the stomach, slowly going down. And then in the stomach, this is this big organ that acts like a storage tank for food, so that the body also has time to digest large meals properly, meaning that if food will get passed through to the small intestines, like in parts. It doesn't all like just go in one go. So, and then in the stomach also, of course, there is a lot of digestion also taking place already, because it contains these acids and digestive enzymes that really start to take the food apart. But it also makes sure that it sort of releases food into the intestines little by little. So the small intestine, super long, it's a thin tube, but it coils a lot. And inside, the inside surface is also like really going up and down, up and down. So there's many ridges and folds. And basically, it's the folds and all the ridges that make that the food basically has to cross past a lot of tissue, or a lot of kilometers almost, so to say, so that there is so much time basically for the body to take the food out of or the building blocks out of the food that we are digesting, so to say. So by the time the food leaves from the small intestine into the large intestine, it's about 90% of the nutrients have been extracted from the food. Then, really not part of that channel or canal, the liver and the gallbladder, but they do play an important role, and the liver has different functions in the body, but the most important function for the digestion, you can say, is that it produces bile, and bile breaks down fat. And the bile gets secreted into the small intestine, and there it will break down fats into smaller building blocks that either can be taken in for the body or continue as waste products down to the large intestine. And the gallbladder is basically an organ that just stores and recycles excess bile. Yeah, so when there is too much or when there is something left, then it comes to the gallbladder, and there it is basically stored for the digestion of the following meals. Then the pancreas, also not part of that alimentary channel. This secretes digestive enzymes also again into the small intestine, and again helping with the digestion of foods. But it's also a very important organ that helps with controlling the blood sugar levels in the body. because it secretes the hormone insulin, and insulin helps basically for the cells to absorb sugar, glucose. And of course, when the cells absorb glucose, it means that the level of blood sugar inside the blood lowers down. Basically, the sugar levels lower down. When the sugars inside the blood are not being absorbed by the cells, then of course the levels can only increase. So the insulin will be excreted from the pancreas the moment that the blood sugar levels become too high, and then actually the cells can now actually take in the glucose and use it for energy. Then the large intestine. The large intestine is a long and thick tube, so to say, and the most important thing is there that it absorbs water. So in the small intestine, there's still a lot of water and fluids that are combined with the food that we are digesting, and then in the large intestine, basically the fluids get taken in back to the body. It's absorbed by the body. And that's why then our feces also become a bit drier. Otherwise, it would always be like we are having diarrhea, so to say. And there, the large intestine also has a lot of symbiotic bacteria that also aid in the breaking down of wastes, and also extracting still a little bit of the last amounts of nutrients that we can actually take from our food. And then the last of the channel or the tract is the rectum and the anus. And that is where our feces, basically the waste product, leaves the body. And it leaves the alimentary channel, basically. Yes, so I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment and see if this is clear. Are there specific questions on this? No, I think it's all pretty clear. I think a lot of you already also quite probably know maybe already a little bit how it all works. Then I do want to show this video again by this crazy guy, just because, again, it shows you pretty well how the system works for us. So I'm going to put it into the chat. This video is also about 10 minutes. Whenever you watch it, please come back to me. And sometimes at the end, he sort of goes on a bit of a summary. We don't really, or he says, we spoke about blah, blah, blah. You can, of course, then already stop there. So I see you in a little bit. Okay, I'm finished. I don't know if everybody else is, but do give me a little signal when you're done, please. I see some of you, great. But let's make sure that everybody else is finished. Yes, I get some thumbs up here and there. Okay. I have the feeling everybody is, yeah, sort of done. Yes, this I love this guy. I think it's a great way of like looking at how anatomy works. So if you like him, I can send the link of like his whole. He has, of course, per system in the body. He has all these videos, and there's a lot more than the few that we watch together. So I will also share a video that he has on the lymphatic system if you're interested in that. And then just a crash course. I'll put the info in the chat, so that, or in the WhatsApp, so that you can actually, if you like, you're an anatomy learner just like me, go watch a bit more things. Okay, then I'm going to share my screen again with you just to finish the last part. So just going to talk a little bit more about the hormone system. I'm not going to talk too long about it because it's not something that I like studied in depth, but just to give you a little bit of the basics. So the hormonal system is basically our second control system. I mean, our second control and communication system. And before, you probably would say like, oh, we only have two. We have the nervous system being our most important or fastest communication system, and then you have the hormone system. But and now also nowadays it's also looked at fascia. We spoke about it a little bit when we spoke about the connective tissues, but fascia is really also a communication system in the body, since it is connecting also the crown of the head to the fingertips, to the tips of our toes. Yeah, but the hormonal system is also a very important control and communication system of the body. It's responsible for the secretion of hormones that regulate various bodily functions in a chemical way, basically. So the hormonal system consists of various glands that excrete these hormones basically directly into the bloodstream, into our circulatory system. And once they're in the bloodstream, these hormones, these, you can say, messengers, basically get carried towards all different tissues and organs in the body. Yeah, so the tissues and the organs receive the chemical messengers, and then they can react to it. They begin to react to it. So I already said this, that the nervous system is a lot faster when it comes to communication. It also means that the effect of something, of a message, basically, the effect in general is shorter. But with the hormonal system, it's a lot slower, the system, but then also the effect lasts a lot longer. Yeah, so the endocrine system or the hormonal system effects are slow to initiate, and but are prolonged in their response. So they can last sometimes from a few hours up to a few weeks, while the nervous system sends information quickly, and the responses generally are short-lived. Now, in the hormonal system, I've already said it, we have various hormone glands throughout the body. There's one master gland, though, which is the pituitary gland. And basically, you can see that as the boss. The pituitary gland tells the other glands what to excrete and when. So this picture is also in your book on page 54. And you see the different glands that we have. The pituitary gland, if you look at my mouse indicator, is here, sort of quite in the center of the skull, you can say. And the hypothalamus controlling also the pituitary gland. And then you have the thyroid gland and the parathyroid. They affect more metabolism, and also the calcium in the blood by the parathyroids. Then we have the adrenal glands that live like on top of the kidneys, and they help to trigger the fight or flight response. And remember, that is our sympathetic nervous system that it triggers and stimulates, and it releases basically adrenaline, cortisol, those stress hormones, basically. Then we have the pancreas. I already mentioned this shortly when we were talking about the digestive system. So that pancreas secretes insulin, and that regulates the level of sugar in the blood. And then we have the ovaries and the testes, of course, and that's it's secreting the female and male sex hormones. So just to show you how many processes in the body actually are sort of controlled by the pituitary gland. And it can also be that the pituitary gland tells basically another gland to excrete something, but it's all, the pituitary gland basically is the boss, and it helps to control different functions, like, for example, growth, blood pressure, some aspects of pregnancy and childbirth. Think about the stimulation of the contractions during childbirth. Then we have the breast milk production, sex organs, functions in both males and females, pain relief, sleeping patterns, that's mainly the pineal gland. Then the thyroid gland function, conversion of food into energy, that's the metabolism. So the pituitary gland also has its control over that. Water and osmolarity regulation in the body, water balance via the control of reabsorption of water by the kidneys. So it basically also stimulates kidneys to absorb more or less. And then temperature regulation. So there's a lot of functions that the pituitary gland basically controls. Yes, and then we have a few other systems in the body which I will not talk about. We have the urinary system, the reproductive system, and then the exocrine integumentary system, which is our skin and hair, nails, sweat glands. But there is a little bit of information about this in your book. So from page 55 and 56, you can see that if you want to just read a little bit more about it or see it. And then I just want to finish to talk about how all these systems that we just spoke about are always working together to create balance in the body, to create homeostasis. And that's what it's called. Homeostasis in the body is like natural harmony. And the body is working so hard for us to keep us healthy. There is so much going on that we have no idea of. The body is such an amazing thing when you think about it. So balance is not just something that's important in our daily lives and between how busy we are with work and our free time and how much time we take for ourselves and socializing. And we need balance basically in our daily lives, but every cell in the body needs balance. Yeah, so it's something that is so important in our lives in general. The body needs to be in a constant balance in order for the cells to stay healthy, basically. And what homeostasis is basically the tendency to resist of any change in the body, basically, to in order to maintain a stable and a sort of a constant internal environment for the cells in the body. So one of the rules in the body is basically that we use it or we lose it. So something is used by the body or it's basically removed. So cells in the body live in a specific environment, in a specific internal environment. It's salty water, but also with specific acid levels, etc., etc. And the cells are only able to survive in a certain conditions. So the environment needs to remain stable. It's about the temperature, the salt content, the acid level, the fluid volume in the body, the pressure, oxygen concentration. Everything that you can think of has an effect on the cells, and it needs to stay within acceptable limits. If something is too much, then the cells, they can handle it maybe for a little bit of time, but not for too long. So that's why the body is always looking for balance, for homeostasis. And we have all these systems in the body that are working together basically to create this. And to accomplish this sort of self-regulation system, a communication and control system within the body is required. And in general, the basic control system that we use for this is called a feedback loop. And in general, you can say that they are always negative feedback loops. And I will show you here with this slide how it works. And you also have this in your book on page 57. So basically, when there is a stimulus, then there is a signal sent to a sensor. The sensor will send it to a control center. The control center will create an effector, and that will change the situation, and we say in a negative way. So the stimulus basically is balanced out again. Yeah, that's what we call a negative feedback loop. And here you can see it, for example, when you think about the body temperature. Our body temperature in general needs to be about 37 degrees. If the temperature rises, then nerve cells in the skin and in the brain, they pick up that signal. And then the temperature regulatory centers in the brain, they will send a message to, for example, the sweat glands to open throughout the body so that we start to sweat, and so that it becomes less, so that the body becomes less warm. Just going to see, I have a chat. Let's see. Ah, that's nice, Tasha. Yeah, you already mentioned this. Yeah, I haven't really been looking into that system a lot, but I did write it down, and I will definitely look into it more, because it's very interesting. Mm-hmm. So basically, yeah, it's a lot, but mostly all the feedback loops that we have are negative. So there is something that is exceeding, and then the body will regulate it so that basically that is toned down. Like for the temperature, it's too hot, and then it is regulated to come down. If there is the sugar level in the blood is too high, then, for example, insulin is excreted into the blood or secreted into the blood so that the sugar levels will go down. So that's why we call it negative. The effect basically is negative to balance out again. There are a few positive feedback loops. And for example, one of them is when a woman is giving birth to a child. And that's not a negative feedback loop, because it's not the case that when actually the head of the baby starts to press against the cervix so that it can come out, it's not that then the body, well, if the body is working in the right way, it's not that then all of a sudden it will do something in a negative way, as in like to avoid that from happening. When it's time to give birth, it actually is a positive feedback loop, because what happens is, when the head of the baby presses against the cervix, then this is sensed, and the brain will stimulate the pituitary gland to secrete this hormone that's called oxytocin. And then oxytocin is carried into the bloodstream towards the uterus. This hormone stimulates basically the contractions of the, how do you call it? Of the uterine, basically. And then the head of the baby can push again more against the cervix. And then actually it will continue. So it is going constantly until, of course, the contractions become more and more and more. And at some point, then hopefully the pelvis is opened enough for the baby to come out. So that's what we call a positive feedback loop. So the end of this story, basically, there are many factors, internal and external, that disturb homeostasis in the body. But it's the body that constantly adapts to these disturbances. And that's why I say the body is so amazing. Disturbances in the body is basically how the body learns and how it gets stronger. And for me, that's when you look at that in your daily life, it's the same. We learn and we grow from the downs in our lives and the challenges on our paths. And that's why at the end, to finish the whole story about anatomy, for the body, the mind, and the heart, at the end, it is all about balance. And when there is, one thing that is great for balance, to bring balance in our life, of course, is yoga. And that's why yoga is so great for us. And then the end, we spoke about everything. So I'm going to stop sharing. And it's actually amazing because when I look at the clock now, it's 1800 hours, meaning 9 a.m. at your time. So this was perfectly timed. And yes, lovely people, we spoke about so much. I hope that you got to learn a lot. You have the manual, which I hope that you will keep and can look through it now and then. There's a lot of information in there as well. And of course, you have access to the videos. If ever you feel like you want to watch back a topic, then you can do that. On the website, I wrote quite clearly what we are talking about per session. So it's easy for you to look it up. And I think there will be a few more exams, I think, today. If I'm not mistaken, I think I saw that Autumn is maybe doing her exam, and one more person, I think. So Ayu, nice. Well, I still need to get the link from Sarah, but I hope that I will get it. I would love to see your classes. And I just want to express my... and John also. Nice. Yes, I want to express my gratitude. Hey, and there we have our lovely family. And Nico, nice to see you. You look well. So everyone, before I give word to Sarah, I just want to say thank you so much for being there with me almost every week. And I just really love doing this. And I hope I shared a bit of my passion. And I know that sometimes I can either or repeat things, or sometimes maybe I can be a bit over excited about things, but I hope that I gave you a little bit of that spark about how amazing actually our body is and what it does for us. So thank you so much, everyone. And
Jane, thank you so much. So grateful and so blessed to share this experience with you. Love you so much and really appreciate you and your time and energy and your willingness to be in all places all over the world and still supporting us and this process. So love you so much and miss you so much, and really just so glad to always have these relationships with you and go ongoing experiences in our lives. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. And thank you again to all students.
And I'll send you that. I'm going to send you that link right now so you can check out. We have 5 of them up already, and then we have 6 more to go. So exciting.
Yay, still a lot to go. Oh, amazing. Okay, looking forward to seeing it. Hey, Isha.
Yeah. Say hi. You have to say hi.
Hi. Thank you, everyone. And again, good luck to the people who still need to do their exams. And I'm looking forward. I will actually just practice with you, which is great. I can practice with your videos, and looking forward to that. So again, thank you, and thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Hot Yoga Club in Chico, and really enjoyed this. And yes, who knows, one day we will see each other again somewhere over the world. And Sarah, I will see you for sure, of course. Thank you so much, everyone. I want to make a picture. I want to make a goodbye picture. Maybe everybody wave, yay! That's nice. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.